Welcome back to another episode of Legacy Battle. I'm Michael Adams, my co-host tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. We have a special interview for you tonight. We are joined by a former college volleyball coach. She also runs a website called Coach by Christ, which we're going to get into here tonight after a few questions. So we want to welcome Ashley McDonough. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate you guys having me. Thanks.
Excellent. Brian, start us off.
So, Ashley, I understand you went to high school in Friendswood, Texas, and competed in a variety of sports. So, which sports were you into, and what sort of drew you to athletics to begin with?
In high school, I did volleyball, cross country, and briefly track. Cross country, honestly, I only joined cross country just to prove a point. I didn't actually enjoy it. I hate running. I do it because it's kind of a cardio is cardio necessity. But volleyball was and has been kind of my main sport for the most part. I've been playing since I was 9, so I just started my 32nd year involved in this sport, whether it be as a coach, an athlete, or now working for NCSA. But I guess I've just always been a part of sports. I mean, ever since, little kid starting off like in soccer when you're like in kindergarten, like a lot of kids do. And I wasn't good at that sport, and I didn't like the running aspect of it, I think. And so volleyball was kind of my main draw. I did basketball and other things like that. But yeah, when I got into high school, I primarily focused just on volleyball and cross country because I wanted to prove a point. And then just kind of stuck it out with volleyball for the remainder of my high school career.
I don't like to run either. That's why I just do like chess and golf now. So
You said chess.
chess and golf. Yeah, after my hockey career ended, that's where I went. So, let's move in here into college in a little bit. So, uh, uh, this is a good question for you because you've coached at Houston, you've coached at Sanctuary, a couple different types of colleges. So, what is the difference, if any, coaching and for players between a secular school and a Christian college?
Um, to be honest, these days most even Christian colleges are fairly open to people of all walks of life. When I was with Centenary, we were Centenary is a Methodist founded college, so there's no required chapel or anything like that, like you would see at Baylor or you would see at East Texas Baptist or some of those schools. We did offer, chapel service every week. We had a college chaplain, and she was awesome with working with our student athletes, and she was very involved with each one of the teams in the sport. She was our libero tracker for volleyball, and she did stats for our basketball programs. And so there was obviously a presence of faith on our campus, but I also coached kids who were Muslim at Centenary, and I coached kids who were agnostic and atheist, and I coached kids who, were Christian. And I think even now, colleges that are faith oriented or were faith founded are more open to bringing in kids of all walks and of all paths. Coaching at a school when I was with University of Houston, I was just a volunteer assistant. And so my involvement with the program was more of, I was like a gopher, like, Ashley, go do this, Ashley, go do this, Ashley, can you do this? Can you help pump balls? Can you help create flyers for our camps? Things of that nature, writing out cards and letters and recruiting stuff. And so for me, and I went to University of Houston. So, I don't really feel like there's ever been a massive difference between coaching at schools that were faith oriented or coaches or schools that weren't. Because even when I was at Knox College in Western Illinois or at Cayuga, they were not faith oriented schools. But again, I had the same type, I would say, of student population that I had at Centenary.
So, Ashley, sadly, you were unable to compete at the collegiate level due to some sports-related injuries. Yet you were able to coach at the collegiate level for 3 different schools. You mentioned a few, the Cayuga, Knox, and Centenary. So, did you ever find that to be a challenge, like relating to college athletes? Despite unfortunately never being able to have an opportunity to be one yourself?
Not really. I mean, I was committed to play at a school and before backing out just because of, like you said, shoulder injuries. I've had 7 total shoulder tears. And my first one at age 14 at a qualifier in New Orleans. So it started early too. And but I think that the experiences that I had as a student in college, working full time, often more than full time, I would argue that my schedule was busier, to be honest, than the kids that I've coached. So I think that the things that I learned as a we kind of joke now and call them NARPs, non-athletic regular people. We as a NARP kind of in college. You know, I think that my experiences were still relatable. I had to be good at time management. I had to be responsible. I had to be accountable. I didn't live in a dorm. I lived in apartments. And so, you know, I was paying my own bill, paying my rent, paying my utilities, doing those things, working a full-time job and often a part-time job. I always took minimum of the full number of credit hours, you know, and I did a lot of other things. I started a homeless organization while I was in college, and I did that as well. So I think that a lot of the same things and responsibilities that and discipline required the way that I did things was very relatable to the kids that I've coached over the years.
Right, right. Well, one of the aspects of being a college level coach is the recruiting. So what has that been like so far in your career, and how do you deal with a prospect who maybe is on the fence about joining your program?
I mean, my take on it is that, and I used to say this to some of my recruits as well, is that if it comes down to me and another coach, choose the other coach. And I was very straightforward about that because I wanted kids who wanted to play for our school, wanted to play for me. And if they had any kind of hesitation about it and they weren't sure, then I didn't want them to be there. And it wasn't because I didn't like the kid or I didn't love the family or, you know, because there are kids that I recruited that I didn't get that I still talk to. And I told them, you know, you can still touch base with me and ask questions, and I'm still willing to help you out. There was no harm, no foul. College coaches get told no more than they get told yes. So, you know, it wasn't a big deal. It's not like they hurt my feelings or anything. And so I don't really know that it was a challenge when kids maybe, if, you know, when I invested time into athletes, and then they chose to go somewhere else. It was my goal at the end of the day, which is what I do now for a living, is purely recruiting, is, you know, helping kids find the right fit, whether it's with me or with someone else, or now in my role, helping them find, you know, just the right school. And I give the kids now the same advice as if I was recruiting them for my own programs, is that we need to make sure we're helping you find the best fit athletically, academically, and socially. And if we can't pin down those 3 things, and you can't envision yourself being at that school where your sport is not a part of the equation anymore, then it's not the right school. And so, like, I'm just very straightforward. I was very straightforward when I was recruiting for my own programs, and I'm very straightforward with my client base now, and just trying to help them navigate the process and try to help them find the best fit for them. At the end of the day, I want all these kids to succeed, you know? And so, like I said, coaches get told no more than they get told yes. And so, I guess unless you're like Nebraska or Wisconsin or something, but for the most part, you know, most of us get told no more than we get told yes. And so, just kind of trying to keep that in mind. And at the end of the day, you know, these are kids that are making the first big adult decision of their life, and they don't need an adult, in my opinion, trying to pressure them in one way or another if there's any sort of hesitation there, because the kid's just going to wind up transferring. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to enjoy their experience. They're probably going to transfer, and they're going to have to start the process over again. So there's no point in dragging a kid or a family through something that, you know, at the end of the day, that it might not be the best fit for that student athlete.
So I got 2 opinionated based questions here for you. First one is everybody watches volleyball during the Olympics. You know, a lot of people watch college volleyball. My alma mater, Pitt Panthers women's, are tearing it up right now. So kudos to them. But the Olympics volleyball always does great ratings.
Mhm.
What, in your opinion, would the U.S. support a professional league on television? What would it take for something like that to happen?
It's already starting to happen. I mean, look at what happened with Nebraska when they sold out playing outside at the football stadium a year ago. They sold out in like an hour and they sold over 80,000 tickets. And, volleyball's already one of those sports that people want to watch it. It's fun, it's exciting, it's fast paced. My favorite sport to watch live is hockey for that exact same reason. It's fast paced, it's hard. These are big, strong, powerful women who are cramming balls down each other's throats, and there's just something about it that, as a young girl and you watch some of these Olympic athletes playing and they're everything that I think most little girls kind of want to be, like maybe not necessarily that particular sport, but like they're intelligent, they're college educated, they're I'm biased, but I think we're the cute sport, to be honest. I think we're quite adorable. They're they're powerful, they're strong, they're athletic, they're determined, I don't know why you wouldn't want to watch that. And I think it kind of goes back to it's just such a fast-paced sport. And and on top of it all, it's like what, like the number, I think it's like we're like the number 4 most popular sport in the world because it's one of the most accessible sports for kids to play and for people to play. I've seen videos online where people in third world countries are playing with a fence instead of a net, but they're playing. And so it's just one of those sports that's really accessible. I think it's the same reason soccer is as popular as it is. You all you need is a ball. Like it's accessible. And so, what backyard barbecue have you ever gone to, or a big family reunion or a company picnic or something? And volleyball is not part of the equation. Most of the time it is, if it's in better months of the year where the weather is fine. And so I think it's just the sheer availability of the sport. It's a sport that everybody's kind of familiar with already. And then you take into consideration the type of women that are playing that sport. And it's just fun to watch. And it's inspiring for young kids, even if they're little kids that play soccer, basketball, whatever else. They're seeing these phenomenal role models that are playing this fast-paced, powerful sport, and it's just fun.
So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this next question or not, but it's something I've always wondered. So we had U.S. Olympic gold medalist Eric Moana on. He was beach volleyball. He loved being in the sand. So here's my question. How hard is it to transition from the hard court volleyball to the sand? And can any player do it? Is there a difference?
Yeah, it's a huge difference. First of all, you're only playing with 2 people instead of 6. And so
Right.
you have a lot more court to cover. Secondly, I don't know if you've ever gone running in the sand, but it's not pleasurable, at least not for me. But I don't like running in general. So cardio is cardio. But running in the sand and jumping in the sand is just completely different. I coached a guy in college club volleyball at Centenary, and massive jumper. I mean, the dude can get his chest over the net on a men's height net. And then he went and played some sand volleyball and texted me, and he was like, Coach, he's like, I feel like I can't jump at all. And he's like, it's just so different. And I'm like, yeah, you got to get your sand legs. I mean, I was 30 years old before I was able to block a ball ever. And I had played sand all summer long, 6 days a week, 6 nights a week. This is when I moved to Syracuse. And then when my indoor season started that year, just goofing around with the kids, jumped up and blocked the snot out of one of my hitters. And I was like, I shocked myself. Because I was like, well, I'm a defensive specialist. I'm a back row player. And so, the sand, jumping in the sand and moving in the sand is just so much different. In my opinion, in this, people might have a different opinion than me on this, but I think it's just more strategic because it's more about where you're placing the ball most of the time than how hard you can hit it. And so I think there's just a big difference there. Some of the smaller rules are a little bit different. Obviously, there's, like I said, 2 players instead of 6. So you have your big and your small most of the time, whereas you have a bunch of different specialized positions on indoor. So yeah, I mean, they're really not even, I mean, they share a name, but for the most part, they're not the same sport.
So tell us about how Coach by Christ came about, how people can find it, and the message that you want athletes to get from it.
Yeah, so this part's a long story, and I'll try to keep it short for you. But I started Coached by Christ in January of 2023. So at the time, I was coming off of my fourth back-to-back surgery in 2 years. I had 3 spine surgeries, and I also had 2 labrum repairs done in my right shoulder. And so when I say back-to-back, I'm talking like I finished the shoulder surgery rehab on a Friday at one point, and then that next Monday, 3 days later, I was in for another neck surgery. And so they were literally back to back to back. And after that fourth surgery, I recall sitting at home on my couch, and I was really contemplating whether I even wanted to coach anymore, because all of these injuries stemmed from volleyball, and it's just kind of been a domino effect, and it's kind of been the story of my life since I was about 14. And so I was kind of debating whether or not I wanted to continue coaching, and if I did, in what capacity. And I was, lack of better words, I was just hopped up on pain meds and everything else. And because I was literally about 2 weeks out from that last neck surgery. And so I'm sitting on the couch, I had my laptop on my lap, and I was surfing LinkedIn job postings, because I was like, maybe I don't want to coach anymore. Let's see what else is available. Let's see what else is out there right now. Maybe this is a good time for me to make this transition, once I finish my recovery from this surgery. And I don't, this might sound weird, but it was almost like hearing a voice that wasn't there. And it's just like telling me more or less, like, you can continue coaching, but you do need to change the way you're doing it. And so I started.
That's not weird at all. We've all seen Facing the Giants. So
Okay. I promise I don't regularly hear voices, but sometimes and so I decided that I wanted to kind of start looking into different ways of coaching. And again, it was kind of that voice. It's like, just write about it. Like, you've always been good at writing, you enjoy doing it. All the medications that I had been on for so long had really negatively impacted my brain and my ability to think and speak clearly, to remember things. I went through about a 6-7 month bout of anterograde amnesia from an negative interaction between 2 of my medications that thankfully one of my players' parents, who's a pharmacist, had caught. They noticed odd behavior on the sidelines. And one of the other parents was a physician, and they kind of were chatting about it. And they said it looked like somebody who's been taking Ambien, where they don't necessarily know what's going on, or they forget things and things like that, except people take Ambien at night. I was taking my prescribed medications during the day, and it was having the same effect. And so I went through a really long stretch where I couldn't remember the day before. Now I can kind of laugh about it to an extent. It was like the movie 50 First Dates with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler. And it was very frustrating, and like I said, now I can kind of laugh at it, but back then it was terrifying. And I wasn't sure what was going on. And so I was using the website and using writing as brain PT. And so I decided that I was going to start writing a lot. And I started writing about my experiences as a coach and some of the issues that I saw within college athletics and higher education. And I wasn't even quote unquote saved at the time. I was interested in faith and in Christianity. I had spent over 20 years as an atheist and agnostic. And so it's weird when God shows up and starts talking to people that are very unlikely, but that's kind of his history, as he picks out people to inspire or lead in a different direction or in a direction that will help others. And so I was already in a helping profession, but I really needed to shift my focus on the way I was doing things and the approach that I was taking to my coaching, and honestly just to life and mentoring and in general. And so Coached by Christ, it started off as brain PT. It started off as a shift in my coaching. It started off as a way for me to research and to learn more about Christianity and faith, which I went to Catholic school for 8 years as a kid. But I'm also one of those people that has like 5 different degrees or something like that at this point. And so I need to know something before I can believe something. I need to research something for myself before I can believe something. And that's just how I am. And I've always been that way, just across the board. And so the website, it not only helped me mentally, it didn't just make me a better coach, but it also through the process of just researching and studying the Bible and reading different texts from even, different authors like C.S. Lewis and John Gordon and different other people who are influenced by faith. And then that kind of led me to, I kept seeing advertisements online for Liberty University. And so I went and did a graduate certificate in ministry, and took 4 grad courses at once. That was a real hoot. Accelerated grad courses at once. Made a 4.0 though. Whoop, whoop. I would say a few months after that, I had a whole other interview story where I had an encounter with the Lord, and I decided to get rebaptized as an adult. And so the website's done a lot for me, and I think selfishly, that was kind of what I was looking for at first. And then the more that God started to work in my life, and the stronger of a relationship that I started to build with the Lord, I started to realize that I had a platform to influence other people. And I started to really try to use it that way, and take on more speaking engagements and take on more podcasts and things like that, and to speak more openly about it with my student athletes. Never pushing it. I think that I even try to write in such a way that doesn't exclude people. I have friends of mine who are not Christians, but they read my articles regularly, and they will. I had one who said when he replaces, how did he word it? Like when he replaces Christ, like the word Christ or something like that, with like just faith or higher power or something along those lines, he said it made sense to him and he could relate to it. And so I feel like what I started it started in one place and it's completely gone in another. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm extremely grateful for that. And I think published my 100th article or something like that about a month or so ago. And it's been quite the journey. I'll just say that it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, but Ashley, this is a controversial question. So if you want to skip it, we can definitely skip it. Actually, the San Jose State volleyball team has been in the news because of the controversy surrounding one of their players, Blair Fleming, a biological male, now a transgender woman. Many of San Jose's opponents have forfeited games due to safety concerns and other objections. So what are your thoughts on this controversy, and what is the best solution to this issue going forward, in your opinion?
No, I don't mind answering that question. My opinion is that we're all children of God. My opinion is that God created all of us in his likeness and in his image. The Bible tells us that. And so I believe that it's not my place to judge somebody else. That'll be between them and God. And when they stand in front of God one day and they stand in front of Christ, Christ is either going to say, welcome home, or I never knew you. And, I pray that everybody has an opportunity to know the Lord. And I pray that everybody has an opportunity to, stand in front of Christ one day and hear him say, welcome home. When it comes to teams that are forfeiting matches, I think it's their right. And I think that if that program and that athletics department and that school has objections to it, then it's their right to forfeit. It is their right to choose not to play. I personally don't believe that we should include transgendered persons in women's athletics, but I don't think that makes me dislike or hate or feel any sort of negative feelings towards somebody who is transgendered, because like I said, we're all made in the image and likeness of God. And so that person is a human being who is loved by our creator, despite their choices. And so that's kind of my stance on it. I personally would probably be one of those programs that would be likely to forfeit, just to be perfectly honest with you. But again, I don't think that it's because I have any sort of disdain or negative feelings towards that person. I wish that person the best. I wish anybody who's transgendered the best. I hope that they have a relationship with God. I hope they have a relationship with the Lord. And that's kind of my stance on it.
So as we said, you've coached in a variety of different roles for a handful of different teams. What advice would you share for like any first time coaches out there?
Oh man, have a team handbook, put it in writing. Um, I think that, I joke and say that, there are some things in my handbook. It's a handbook that I've been revising and reusing since 2008. And there's some stuff in there that is just, it sounds so stupid, but I guarantee it's because at some point some kid did something that made me put a rule in my rule book, in my team handbook, and have it in writing. And even if you think it's something obvious, have it in writing. Discuss those things with your kids at the beginning. And obviously, depending on what age group you're coaching, whether it's college or it's young kids, things are going to change. I don't feel the need to have an alcohol policy for 13-year-olds. I hope I don't. But that's something that I would revise, maybe between college and young kids, but a lot of the rules are going to be the exact same. I also think that advice for a young coach is don't expect things from your players in terms of character that you're not willing to model or that you aren't modeling. And so, if you expect your athletes to have a strong work ethic, to be on time, then you need to be you need to be there before your players. Like, you need to make sure that your practice plans are written out in advance. You need to have put in the time doing scouting reports. You need to have put in the time watching film, doing all of these things beforehand. If you say one thing, then you need to do it. Say what you mean what you say. Kids are paying attention to everything that you do and say, whether you're realizing it or not. And again, that goes from little kids up to college-aged students. And what you project oftentimes on the sidelines, your players are going to model on the court. And so when you have that hothead coach on the sidelines, oftentimes you see their kids are little snots, because they're mimicking the behavior that their coach is putting out there. But if you're one of those coaches who remains calm, one of the things I used to tell my players a lot is, try to maintain an even temperament, avoid the emotional highs and the emotional lows. Neither one of them is helpful right now. We can celebrate later, we can get mad later and all those things and experience human emotion. But when we're playing, we need to try to maintain an even temperament. And, referees always used to say that we were one of the most polite teams, most respectful teams that they've ever come across. I required my athletes to go shake the hands of all the officials and the scorers table people at the end of every match, and say, thank you for your service, verbatim, thank you for your service. And that's what they did at the end of every match. And so I think that you just have to lay your expectations out there at the very beginning. And then you also have to model it as well if you expect that of your athletes.
Well, we'll get you out of here with this. I don't know if it's affected volleyball or not, but the NIL, is it having any effect on what you guys do for recruiting and things like that?
Really, for us right now, at least on my end, working for NCSA, it's just about educating families. I mean, honestly, that's it. Because I'm not a athletic broker or I'm not. My job is I'm an advisor. I advise kids through the recruiting process, as do all of our recruiting coaches at NCSA. We're there to advise kids, to educate families, and to help them find that right fit. So really, the impact on me personally in my role is just to educate and just to make sure that people know what changes the NCAA has made and what are the rules attached to those things.
Well, thank you so much, Coach, for coming on. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
I'll remind everybody, hit that like, subscribe, notification button. That's very important. Can never stress that enough. Everyone have a great night. We'll see y'all next time.